Let's talk about bibimbap. Welcome back to Sprung On Food. I'm your host, Kae Sprung. This season, we're talking about favorite food, the history behind it, and the role it plays in the world today. Joining me today is voice actor Bex Marsh. Bex, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I am so excited to talk about this food, but I'll let you go so I don't get too excited.
No, please bring all the excitement that you want. I am excited. I was jazzed to see that this was your favorite food because I very much love this food. We have this synergy here. This is going to be a lot of fun. But I know why I love it, but I have to know why this is your favorite food, what your relationship to it is. Tell me all the things.
Well, Bibimbap and I go way back to my childhood where we had this love-hate relationship, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah, so as a kid growing up, I'm Korean, and my mother would always cook Korean food from home. But being American, it was like, ugh, like I gotta acclimate, mom. Like my friends are eating like hamburgers, hot dogs, like nobody's eating this. Like I cannot be seen eating this. So I hated it whenever she would make it for lunch or, at home for dinner. I just wanted to be all American. So I really rejected it up front. And it wasn't until like my late 20s, now in my 30s, that I have been like, where has this been all my life? Like how did I ever reject you? Because it hits so many pillars for me as an adult now that I'm like, this is the best invention ever. I mean, one, I love that there's no waste in your refrigerator whatsoever. If you have extra vegetables, leftover rice, and an egg just hanging around, like you can make it, and nothing goes to waste. But also like the health benefits of tricking myself now as an adult to eat vegetables and more vegetables is always something I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to put zucchini in brownies. I'm trying to put carrots in muffins, but not make it feel like I'm eating vegetables. And bibimbap does that for me. It looks like a rainbow in a bowl. And if you take out all those little vegetables by themselves and put them separate, I'd probably be like, that's too many vegetables. But for some reason, when you put them in a bowl and like an egg and make it look pretty, I forget that I'm eating vegetables. So it's just like a lot of tick marks. It's delicious. It's also traditional. There's a huge history behind it, which I'm sure you're about to get into. But it's nostalgic, it's delicious, and it's healthy and resourceful. What's not to love?
If that's not an advertisement for bibimbap, I don't know what is. And what you said too about your childhood and kind of pushing that food aside and wanting to have more quote unquote American foods, which I guess in today's world, it's like, what even is that? But it reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yes.
Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
So there's a scene, not that you have to remember it, but there's a scene somewhere in the movie, in the beginning maybe, and it's a flashback of her in her childhood, and she's in elementary school or whatever at the lunch table, and she's bringing out her lunchbox, and her mom packed her moussaka, and the kids next to her were like, "Oh, what's that?" and start making fun of her and stuff like that. And that's horrible to begin with because kids are just the worst. But then you see like, wow, this is such an incredible meal. It's so sad that there's just this, I don't know, a bias towards what would be acceptable to have in a lunch, because then you reflect back and you're like, my God, that kid had the most delicious food for lunch. Meanwhile, some kid has like a weird, I don't know, bologna sandwich or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, really? This kid had that and you were making fun of it? So yeah, just in my mind's eye, I flashed back to that one scene. I was like, yeah, but it's true. Like when we're kids, a lot of times we can't be expected to have that same appreciation for a dish and understand, and we fall victim to wanting to fit in or what the kid next to me is having. That's what I'll have too. So I'm so glad that it has made it back into your life.
Oh yeah, gladly so. It's an ex that I'd welcome back any day,
And the only kind.
The only kind.
Well, speaking of appreciating our food, to better understand and appreciate it, we've got to know where it came from. Today, we're getting into one of Korea's most iconic culinary treasures, bibimbap. Maybe you've seen it on menus or possibly on your feed. Perfect, brightly colored vegetables, a sunny egg yolk perched on top, bold smear of red gochujang that dares to be stirred all together. But this isn't a trendy grain bowl. Bibimbap carries the DNA of Korea's geography, philosophy, and culinary evolution. It's a dish that's fed kings and farmers, reflects ancestral rituals, and a bowl full of cultural symbolism and survival. Before we get into history, let's set the table. Bibimbap breaks down into two parts, bibim and bop, meaning, Bex, do you know what they mean?
I know bop means rice, but bibim,
Uh-huh.
is that like vegetables?
Oh, okay. Well, I like where your mind is going, but it's actually mixed.
Oh,
So we have mixed and rice. So it's simple name, but a complex dish. At its most traditional, bibimbap features a base of warm, short-grain white rice, at least 5 types of seasoned vegetables, often blanched or sautéed individually to maintain their distinctive textures and flavors, a protein, typically thinly sliced marinated beef, but also tofu, mushrooms, or even raw beef in some regions, a fried or raw egg on top, and gochujang, the deep red fermented chili paste made from glutinous rice, red chili powder, fermented soybeans, and salt. In some regions or preparations, especially in stone pot bibimbap known as dolsat, the rice at the bottom is cooked until it forms a crispy crust called nurutsi. This adds a crunchy, toasted texture contrast that's highly prized, and my favorite.
hey,
It's then stirred vigorously before eating, allowing the rice to soak up all the umami-laced sauces, yolk, oils, and juices. The key is balance between flavors, textures, and temperatures. And in Korea, eating isn't just physical, it's philosophical. Traditional Korean medicine, known as hanban, stresses balance among the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, which correspond to 5 colors, tastes, and bodily organs. Here's how they typically break down. There's green for wood, with ingredients like cucumbers, spinach, or zucchini. Red for fire, with gochujang or carrots. Yellow for earth, with egg yolk or pumpkin. White for metal, with radish or bean sprouts. And black for water, with shiitake mushrooms or gosari. In this view, bibimbap goes far beyond a meal. It's edible equilibrium. Bex, are there any foods or things in general that you can think of that embody some of this balance of elements?
other than that, not as eloquently or as satisfying, I have found.
Right.
I'm sure there might be like a soup out there that embodies this of some sort in Chinese medicine, but not like a dish that you could eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes, I know. I was trying to, sometimes when I ask questions, I'm like, I should be responsible and put myself through this too and try and think of what I would answer also. So I'm not just like being cruel about it. And I started racking my brain and I was like, gosh, this one kind of does embody it perfectly. And the only other thing, which is not at all as interesting or sophisticated, that I was like, wow, different components. You could do cold, you could do hot with it. Also, was like an ice cream sundae. Again, it kind of bastardizes the idea of this whole thing. But I was like, but it's cold, and then you can put room temperature ingredients of different textural components on there. You do like a hot, like chocolate sauce. I don't know, but it is in a class of its own. You're right.
Yeah.
So, where did bibimbap come from? Well, as with many beloved dishes, think of bibimbap's history not as a straight line, but more like a family tree with a lot of lively branches and maybe a few mystery relatives. There are 3 major theories, each compelling in its own right. Our first theory takes us back to pre-modern Korea, before refrigerators, telegrams, or even Joseon dynasty. In Confucian Korea, families honored their ancestors with the ritual offerings of food. This was called chesa, and it remains part of Korean tradition today. After the ceremony, the food, carefully laid out in bowls and trays, was eaten communally. Some scholars believe that families began mixing the leftover offerings together, possibly as a symbolic act of unity among the living and the dead. The early name for this, goldanban, which roughly means rice mixed with various things. Goldanban is referenced in the Sa, a cookbook compiled by an anonymous noblewoman in the late 1800s. It describes a dish made of mixing rice with meats and vegetables, likely leftovers from chesa offerings. In this interpretation, bibimbap was born from a ritual rather than a recipe, a form of post-ceremonial respect and fuel. Okay, Bex, we have our first theory so far.
Mhm.
What do you think about this one?
I mean, it makes sense with everything that I understand about Korean culture and what's just been passed down to me from my Korean grandmother is just like waste nothing. So even if
Mm.
it's an offering, which is still done today to a past family member, it's like sometimes they would take those apples or fruits and then like turn it into soup or something. It wasting food was the cardinal sin. So finding a way to make it taste delicious, but also be resourceful about it just feels like quintessential Korean.
Yes. Okay. So far, this sounds like we're on track to a great theory.
Yes.
Okay. We've got two more. Let's see how these two shape up.
Okay.
Our next theory is on the other end of the social spectrum. Bibimbap may have emerged from practical necessity. Imagine this: you're a 17th century farmer in the Korean countryside. It's harvest season, you're short on time, and you don't have the luxury of laying out a dozen small side dishes known as panchan for lunch. What do? You scoop some rice into a bowl, toss on whatever seasoned veggies and pickles are around, maybe a bit of preserved meat or egg, and stir it all together. It's efficient, it's portable. This version of bibimbap has a kind of field to bowl situation. The dish was a way to maximize flavor and nutrition without the fuss of formal mealtime rituals. Okay, how about this one?
Okay, that still holds up too. It makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense. There is maybe this one holds up a little less than the other because there's kimbap, which is the rolled up veggie version of like rolls, almost looking like sushi, that
right.
is more portable, but it does take a lot of time. So I could see both of like, oh, this takes less time. It's just faster and efficient. I could see it this way too.
Okay, okay. So number one's in the top position.
Mhm.
Number two, close second. Let's see where number three stacks up. Finally, there's the theory that bibimbap originated in the royal courts of the Joseon dynasty from 1392 to 1897. Court cuisine was elaborate, dozens of side dishes, each with its own serving method and etiquette. Some scholars propose that court attendants or palace cooks may have mixed together leftovers into a single bowl for themselves, transforming royal opulence into a democratized, unified dish. Over time, this sort of family meal, a term you'd know if you may have worked in the restaurant industry or seen episodes of The Bear, also known as staff meal, was a version of court dining that filtered outward into aristocratic homes and then the broader public. In this version of the story, Bibimbap is basically the original mashup, a kind of culinary DJ spun by palace staff in the back kitchen. Joseon era meals were like a royal tasting menu. Every dish had its own role, its own plate, and absolutely no mingling. So throwing everything together in one bowl was kind of rebellious. Okay, that's our third theory. With all of these presented to you, does one now resonate the most, or do you think they all kind of have a place?
I think they all kind of have a place. I do think this one resonates, and I might be biased towards this specific theory because when I studied abroad in South Korea, I visited this area where the Chosun dynasty kind of like existed, and therefore the birthplace, or they claimed to be the birthplace of bibimbap. And it was this area where the dynasty that you talked about was like more prevalent. And so now it could just be they're claiming it, but I did go visit the place where it they're claiming it. So it kind of makes sense that it would be towards a specific location and a timeline here. So this one maybe takes the cake for me.
Okay. Yeah. And when I heard this one too, I was like, this seems like it is one of those things just not necessarily born out of necessity, but just convenience and how something would just go down in real life.
Mhm.
You've got this very fancy ceremony, and then when it comes back at house, people are like, we're not going to be so precious about this. Like, let's just not waste the food again, eat the food, and it doesn't need to be so parsed out. Let's just make it into a hearty dish. And so, yeah, I think I'm kind of I'm with you on that one.
Awesome.
Now let's talk about names. As mentioned, the dish was originally called goldanban, which appears in Korean cookbooks and court records dating back to at least the late 19th century. Goldan implies mixing or blending. Think of it as assorted, like trail mix but with rice. By the early 20th century, Korea was undergoing massive changes. Colonization in Japan from 1910 to 1945, urbanization, political upheaval. As national identity was increasingly under threat, food became a tool of both preservation and adaptation. That's when we see the name bibimbap begin to appear more regularly, especially in printed cookbooks from the 1930s and 40s. The modern term was more straightforward, and over time, it replaced the older golden ban. Why the shift? Likely because bibimbap's linguistic clarity mixed rice felt more modern, more democratic, and perhaps in a Korea struggling for self-definition, more Korean. Now, let's head out of the capital and into the provinces because bibimbap is actually a family of dishes. The most famous version comes from Seonsu in North Jeolla province. This city claims the title of bibimbap's birthplace, and they have the cultural receipts to back it up. Seonsu bibimbap features raw beef instead of cooked, a raw egg yolk instead of a fried egg, local specialties like yellow, mung bean jelly, and sprouted bean rice, a side of broth served in a separate bowl, and a generous drizzle of sesame oil. Other regional variations include Jinsu bibimbap from South Gyeongsang, features broth-infused rice, often served cold, with ginkgo nuts and marinated raw beef. Tanyang bibimbap, which is coastal, includes seafood like oysters, squid, or sea squirt. And Andong bibimbap from North Gyeongsang adds soy sauce-based seasonings and anchovy stock for depth. Each reflects regional ingredients, climate, and culinary preferences, just like how jambalaya differs across Louisiana or how ramen varies in Japan. So now hearing some of these, do any pique your interest? Any that you would like to try?
I mean, all of them. And I think maybe I have tried all different types of versions, but just didn't know that I was tasting that specific version, you know. But there's also the version that I grew up with, which is like Midwest Korean
Oh, tell
bibimbap.
me about that.
Yeah, so like, you know, growing up in Nebraska, there's not a lot of Korean culture that exists there. So it was just like me and my mom, my aunts, and like a handful of other Koreans that live there. And so getting the ingredients like gosari or like other things to make a traditional form like just wasn't available. So we made our what we would call like Midwest Korean food, which we would use local ingredients like corn and put like grilled corn or leftover corn in there, you know, carrots and potatoes. Potatoes aren't usually put in there, but you would cook the potatoes so they still had a little crunch to them, not all the way. And yeah, we just use Midwest seasonal ingredients. Zucchini was another one that isn't traditionally put in there, but it's a little mix of everything, like you're saying, a mix of culture and agriculture.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. The Midwestern, do we give it a proper name of Nebraska or do we just call it like the Midwestern
I
bibimbap?
think we
Like,
call it the Midwestern bibimbap. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow, this is great. You should put like a I don't know, start a blog all about the food and put this version out there. But this is such a cool thing, and I think that this is a lot of times how I've have from episodes that I've recorded how sometimes a lot of these dishes can transform themselves into different variations, different versions based on travel, culture, the agriculture around us, and just making sense out of all of that and translating any cultural ties or recipes that we have and acclimating to where we are. And so this in a sense was kind of a really cool unique version that you grew up having that may not be in a classic recipe, but it was your own personal experience, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's fun too, because if you eat bibimbap anywhere, you really kind of are just getting that one version from that one place, you know, because, and that's kind of like the beautiful part of it. It's like, I'll never have the same bibimbap ever. You know what I mean? It's never probably ever going to be the same because you probably won't come at that exact season again or that exact time. So it's almost like this culinary marker of the land, the people, and the culture that you get to ingest, which is so fun to think about, actually.
Oh, I that was so poetic. Thank you. I love that. Well, fast forward to the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Korea begins asserting itself globally, not just through industry and tech, but through culture. K pop, K drama, K beauty, and yes, K food. Bibimbap becomes a culinary ambassador. Unlike dishes that require specific acquired tastes, bibimbap is approachable, colorful, customizable, can be vegetarian friendly, can be gluten free, and makes for a beautiful photo. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Korean Air began serving bibimbap as its flagship in-flight meal on international routes. The meal came with detailed instructions on how to stir the gochujang, rice, and toppings. So after your pre-flight safety demonstration, you got a hands-on tutorial in Bibimbap 101. So what makes bibimbap so powerful as a cultural symbol? Well, Korean scholars often point to the dish as a metaphor for unity and diversity. Every ingredient is distinct, yet essential. When stirred together, they don't disappear, they enhance each other. It's a subtle but powerful metaphor for Korean identity, especially in a country with deep historical wounds from colonialism, war, and division. In the 2020s, bibimbap continues to evolve. Plant-based versions use tofu, mushroom, or jackfruit instead of beef. Grab-and-go bibimbap bowls are sold in Korean markets, and creative chefs create unique twists on the dish like bibimbap arancini. And yet, at its core, the essence remains: stir it up and honor the balance. So the next time you're sitting down with a bowl of bibimbap, take a second. You're not just eating something delicious, you're tasting generations of history, everyday labor, tradition, and the kind of quiet balance that comes from throwing a bunch of different things together and somehow making it work. Bex, what do you think about the backstory of bibimbap?
I love it. I feel like it encompasses everything you described about Korean history and the grasp for cultural identity. This country, and a lot of people don't know the history of Korea, is like really tumultuous. Like they've really been through a lot, not caused by them, but by others around them. And so to hold on to something like this that is so uniquely traditional and Korean, but also inclusive, is
Mm.
just such the embodiment of the people, of the spirit of the people, and a cool way to like pass down legacy. I don't know, I'm just a huge fan in so many ways.
Yeah, and same. I think that even if people are not familiar with the dish or have never had it before, I do find it an extremely approachable dish. It's delicious, it's dynamic, there are different textures, and it's just so good. So, yeah, if anybody out there has not had it or had the privilege, or now even maybe if you don't have a restaurant near you, depending on where you are, or a Korean market near you where you could potentially get it, people can take inspiration from your version perhaps and make it themselves with whatever ingredients maybe sound great to them and make their own version.
Yes, yes, I highly recommend that. Next day old rice is always better anyways. If you have that
Okay.
left over, yeah, put it in there, put it on a frying pan, with some sesame oil, make your own, and stir fry the vegetables. A good tip
Yes.
that my family does is kitchen scissors. So if you have kitchen meat
Okay.
scissors and you have all these vegetables, sometimes it's just like really stringy and a lot to like get on a spoon. So you just take scissors and you immediately just start cutting everything, cutting it so they're into like smaller little bite sizes. And then you get a little bit of every vegetable in each spoonful. So the real tip is kitchen scissors for everything.
Oh, this is fabulous. Okay, and so a clarifying question.
Uh-huh.
Are we using the scissors to chop up all the vegetables before they go onto the rice, or are you like putting it on a fork, cutting it up a little bit before you eat or whatever? Like how does, or a spoon or sticks, how is this going down with the scissors?
This is a great question. It's
Okay.
actually after you've already plated it all for yourself
Uh-huh.
on the bowl. And when you even before or after, whatever your choice is, you have the egg on there, you have maybe the gochujang sauce on there, and you look at this beautiful thing you created and you just start slicing away immediately and just like going down into to cut the vegetables that are already in like
Okay.
kind of like little mounds together. So like you just
Yeah.
start slicing them through in different directions before you mix everything all together.
Oh, that's so fabulous, and, like, so much more practical and easy than doing, like, a fork knife situation and
Yeah.
cutting things up into little pieces. This is just so much more efficient and practical.
Yes.
I have Yeah, I have kitchen scissors that I that I like to use for a lot of things that people might be like, "What? Why?" But it's because it makes sense. And just like, I don't even know if this is accurate, but like just ergonomically, like I don't know, it's just easier. It feels like that versus that.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, and that meaning, if you're listening as a podcast, the cutting motion with scissors versus the fork and knife cutting motion. Yeah, to me it's just so much easier. It makes just so much more sense.
Yeah, so much more quicker. And then, like I said, you get a little bit of everything because you're going to mash it all up anyways, you know?
Right. Efficiency is the name of the game, and I'm here for that. That is an excellent pro tip. Well, with a dish this beloved, it's found itself in some pop culture moments. In the classic show Full House from 2004, and no, not the American sitcom with the Olsen twins, this is a K drama where in an episode, the female lead offers bibimbap to her partner, who initially mocks it, only to later completely devour it, which is an iconic scene among fans. The Seonsu Bibimbap Festival, held annually since 2007 in Seonsu, Hanak Village, celebrates regional variants of bibimbap with cooking competitions, tastings, folk games, and cultural performances. It draws around 150,000 participants each year. This sounds like a festival I think you might
I
enjoy.
think
Uh,
so.
they have the next one coming up, so maybe
Oh,
start looking into
I
tickets. I don't
know.
know.
And I'm so glad you brought up the Korean air bibimbap because that is such a classic. You want to talk about the best airline food of your life? It is that Korean air bibimbap. I swear,
Is that right?
it really holds up. It really does.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
and to give you some backstory, I used to fly to Korea like every 2 years since I was born in the summer. So that's a lot of flights.
yeah.
It's at least 13 hours, from where we
Yeah.
are in the middle of the country. And so when you can have a good meal on an airline, that just makes that really hard time so much better. That bibimbap, whatever they do and how they keep it so fresh and good in the air is forever like a godsend from Korean Air. So if anyone ever gets to try it, take Korean Air, do the bibimbap. It is so worth it. Yeah, high praise.
Yeah, I have not had the privilege of flying on that airline yet, because I certainly would like to. And then when I heard that, I was like, oh dang, whenever it is in time that I do make my trip over, I hope they're still serving that, because that would be so amazing. I think of a lot of the flights. I mean, domestic flights, certainly they don't hardly give you anything. You're lucky if you get a bag of chips. But international flights, sometimes it's depending on what's going on. Sometimes it's like it's fine, it's you have to eat, so like whatever.
Mhm.
But to be able to have something that is actually delicious and accurate in its components and presentation and all of those things is very impressive.
Yes. They've also like really mastered like the small portion of gochujang in this like little tube that looks like mini toothpaste tube. So
Oh,
like
I love that.
they just really figured it all out, like how to make it compactable and still delicious. So even just for that, it's really a modern feat.
The idea, I would want to eat it with the rest of the dish, but a part of me would secretly want to like take that little tube back with me as like a little token or souvenir and use it for a later date. It sounds so freaking cute.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, on Reddit, fans celebrated the K-pop group BTS when their members plated Bibimbap on their 1 billion stream Spotify plaque in a video for their song Dynamite, calling it a poetic nod to their Korean roots. According to Google's year-end search for 2023, Bibimbap was the most searched recipe globally, beating out other international dishes. It broke benchmarks in countries like India, Singapore, and Sweden. And today, there are almost 900,000 tags for bibimbap between Instagram and TikTok. Bex, are there any other pop cultural moments that you can think of where bibimbap made its mark, or any final words that you have about your favorite food?
I can't think of any pop culture moments other than the ones that you've named, and I'm sure it makes a debut and many more K-dramas. It's just such a staple. But lasting remarks. I want to speak to Bibimbap personally and just say I'm so
Yes.
sorry for rejecting you. for over 15 years of my life. It was a big mistake, and I'm so excited that it's made its debut into mainstream pop culture now, so that hopefully kids who were my age back then don't feel like they have to hide it, don't feel like they can't share it at the lunch table, but actually might feel empowered and excited to bring it to lunch. And for that full circle moment, I'm so grateful. And I'm so glad I finally came back around to it because I could eat it every day, seriously.
It is such a perfect meal. So I 100% agree with you. And what a beautiful kind of evolutionary moment that you've reached. And this is the future is bright.
Yeah.
The future is bright.
And I'm excited to
Well,
see how it like shifts too with like modern tastes. I think it will evolve in some ways too.
well, Bex, thank you so much for sharing your love of Bibimbap and helping me to tell its story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so fun and I learned a lot actually. I didn't know a lot about this. So I'm excited to go like tell my mom about it. She's going to be so impressed.
Thanks for watching. You can find links and more info in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. See you next time.